Hi, this is Dan Devlin for the Detective Dan Devlin Show. Honorable people, honorable nation. Welcome to our show. In previous weeks, we've done programs on a number of issues, and I've mentioned the organization God and Country Oath Keepers. For those of you who don't know, we're based upon the principles that many people take an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that oath, some people believe never expires, and other people think that it only applies while an individual is in a particular office. But it's important, and I really believe that this is something that the general population of the country needs to understand. And that is that it is our responsibility as people who are part of what we call we the people of the United States. It is their responsibility to defend that Constitution against all enemies. And the reason for that is, and the reason that it's not just the responsibility of those who take a specific oath, but it is everyone's responsibility, because if you are one of we the people of the United States, then you are the people who are named to be accountable for what this nation does and becomes. Now, in God and Country Oath Keepers, we take an extra special look at that oath. And we let others know that we're going to meet that responsibility. This does not mean everyone else is off the hook. You should be supporting what we do, because, especially when it comes to domestic enemies, there are many in this country. And unfortunately, many of them are people who we have placed in office. And each one of those people normally take an oath to support and defend or protect the Constitution of the United States. Now, it's important to know, and in this series that we'll be going through, we'll deal with the Constitution and many aspects of the Constitution. But when it comes to that document, it's words on a piece of paper or parchment, or it could be written on a board in a schoolroom. But those words have meaning. And it is the belief on most people's part that when they're having problems and their so-called rights are being violated, they run to the Constitution and they say, I have a right. A right. And mostly that term is used because an individual wants to do something and they believe that they should be able to do it. Seldom do people understand that without responsibilities, if you're not willing to adhere to the responsibilities, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve no rights. Because rights, to me, and I believe to everyone when they stop and think about it, is based upon mutual respect. And we just did a program on respect. That respect requires me to say, wait a minute, if I want this right, I know that others want that as well. And if people are infringing upon that other person's right, what are my responsibilities towards that other person that's being violated? We can wait for others to come to their rescue, and that's part of what God and Country Oath Keepers is about, is to try to do that whenever possible, is to help them understand what the Constitution is about and how not only it can serve them, but our responsibility toward the Constitution, toward God, toward our country, so that we can have what this program is all about, an honorable nation, because we are honorable people. Many of the things we deal with in this program, and my way of giving a presentation can be boring, I realize. And it can be tedious because I often take very small steps in order to arrive at a certain place. But these are designed for us to consider various aspects of different issues. And too often we live in a world that is made up of sound bites. And if you have a clever phrase, and if you can say it in a matter of a couple seconds, then that works great for most people. The problem is that it doesn't allow us to give much thought to what we're doing. And for me, most of the problems that we've experienced in certainly American society and worldwide as far as that's concerned, are because we don't give what we're dealing with enough thought. And as we covered in our area on respect, it's not just giving it thought from our perspective, but from other people's perspective as well. And if our goal is really to solve the problems that we have, we should want to do those things because that is the best way to find the right and just solution, the effective solution, the honorable solution. And that's something that we should all want if we're good and decent people. But if we want others to be used for our benefit, and we want to accept no responsibility for our behavior, then it's easy to dismiss these rights of others and simply do what we want to do, or as we want to do. And you know I often stumble over my words because I'm searching for the right word. Oftentimes it doesn't come that quickly. But we have a personal relationship here, and I hope you always know that I have your best interest at heart when I talk about these issues. And I truly believe in a nation of diverse cultures, races, beliefs. Can we work together for common goals? There's no doubt that we can, and that can be effective if we do so based upon respect for others and a mutual understanding of what that goal is that we're trying to reach. Of course, there are tons of people out there who they really want what's best for them or what they think is best for them. They really don't care about you. We see it all the time. We see it happening in our political environment where people will make up lies, demonize others, when nothing is based in fact. They don't wait for the evidence to be presented. They rush to judgment because their goal is simply to build themselves up and tear other people down. These are not people you should be following. You should be following those who actually have your best interest at heart. Sometimes that requires us to be brutally honest with ourselves. And I go into that today because I want to deal with the fundamentals. You know that we have the website FundamentalHumanRights.Org. I believe in those fundamentals. Humanity's Torch, the painting that I gave to the world's people in 1989, deals with the truth about what we can see, about what we know, and dealing with that in a way that we're honest with others in order to solve the problems that we all have. Well, the Constitution of the United States is an amazing document. And if people stop and think about it, I don't think that there would be many people out there who really want to live without that document being very important and instrumental in what happens in their lives. The problem is that oftentimes we want to use it for our benefit and we want to ignore it when somebody else calls upon it in order to either defend them or to protect them or to provide some benefit for them. And so today I want to talk specifically, and over a period of time we'll go into detail in many areas of the Constitution of the United States. But there are fundamental principles, core issues that are dealt with in the Constitution that are vital for us to understand if we want that to serve in our favor, and if we want to understand it so we can support and defend that Constitution and confront others who violate their oath of office and are disrespectful for the people of the United States, their own constituents oftentimes in their whatever jurisdiction they're from. And it's our job, whether you're a member of God and Country Oath Keepers or another organization, or whether you're a member of no organization except being one of the people of the United States. And so you've probably heard me say it a number of times. I hope you've been listening. And that Constitution starts out with "we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the best blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." Then it goes on to say, "do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." This I refer to as the statement of purpose. It's just part of the Constitution. It's not called the preamble the way people often use the word. Well, that's a preamble to the Constitution. Well, the word preamble, and a lot of what we do is based upon understanding the words that are actually used. When people use the word preamble actually means a statement of purpose. And so if we were to do anything, what if we didn't understand the purpose of what we were doing? What if we didn't have guidelines that say, you can't do these things because it doesn't adhere to what we set out to do? Those fundamental principles, that purpose. So the statement of purpose, and I refer to it in my book, The Right of Rights, when I talk about the first and final test. And I believe that whether it's within Congress or any legislative body, whether it's in the courts or executive branches, if we're talking about dealing with a law, an existing one or creating a new one of the first things we need to do is say, does it adhere to the statement of purpose of the Constitution of the United States? Does it help to establish justice? Or does it undermine justice? Does it provide for the common defense? Oftentimes we look at so-called gun laws and we say, wait a minute, this doesn't help the common people. It doesn't allow them to make sure that they can be safe on their own without running to some governmental agency in order to defend them. And having been in law enforcement and in the military, I can tell you that most of the situations that people run into where their life or their safety is in danger, there's going to be no police officer there. There's going to be no military person there until after the violation has occurred. And you may not be with us after that violation has occurred. But then we'll say, okay, we have to now seek justice for this person. Justice comes before you're violated. These are the fundamental principles upon which this nation is based. And when we have laws that are contrived, and they're not really laws because they don't adhere to the Constitution, but they're put up as laws. Some people consider them fake or imaginary laws. And people seek to enforce them. When most of those types of laws, the people enforcing them would never want to have them enforced upon themselves. Do you think police officers want some governmental agency, a governor and the legislature? And I remind people, in New York State, we have gun laws being passed by people who are criminals. And oftentimes, they wind up in prison themselves or convicted of major violations of the law. And they're passing laws that make the people of New York State more vulnerable to bad actions by people who wish to harm them. Now, there are reasons for that, and we'll go into that at some point, but we won't go into it today, because I want to stick to the fundamentals of the Constitution. And that most basic principle, that fundamental purpose of the Constitution is, and I remind people, establishing justice, ensuring domestic tranquility, providing for the common defense. None of those are possible if you have not secured for yourselves and others the blessings of liberty. To establish justice is a blessing of liberty. Because you have liberty, you have the freedom, you have the control over your life. Because you have that, you can establish justice. You not only can, but in my opinion, you have a responsibility to do so. And if it's not being done, it's on your shoulders, not the politicians, not some judge who has his own priorities. And unfortunately, oftentimes, people who are in office serve themselves before they serve the public. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't some out there that are good and honorable people, and many perhaps. But many know what the system is like, and they know that people are violating their oath of office, making things more difficult for people, less safe for people. They know that, and they do it anyway. But that's where we come in, because we, as people of the United States, whether we've taken an oath or not, we have that responsibility, because if we want those rights, so-called rights, those benefits, that protection, someone has to make sure that those things are available to us. And the Constitution says that it is up to the general population, we the people, to make sure that your government officials go by their oath of office, which I remind people is a contract with us. And when they take an oath to defend the Constitution, to support it, to go by it, that's what they need to do at least while they're in office. And when they seek to undermine elements of the Constitution, such as the Second Amendment, which is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And for those of you who don't know, it's really about security. Yes, it talks about firearms, it talks about a militia, But the object, and remember, we're about fundamentals. The fundamental of the Second Amendment is that security. Because people want security, they want to be secure, they need to possess the tools, some of which happen to be firearms, to be able to be secure and to be able to join a militia if it comes necessary to defend your state and your nation against enemies. Many people don't think that it could result in that today because they've been so secure for so long. But these fundamental principles, such as the Second Amendment, is crucial because there are people that we have hired through elections or whether it's appointments who really benefit from us being more vulnerable. You have the responsibility to defend your family. That is a religious right. And I'll remind people that the Ninth Amendment, and I'll let you look it up because we'll give you a little homework here. It's crucial because it states that beyond any of the things that government does, people have certain rights of which we're not naming in the Constitution, but you equally have those rights. And so, in order for us to be secure, you need to take responsibility for yourselves. This is not to say that you can't violate someone else's rights and wind up in prison because you do so. And if you do that, you have the responsibility to acknowledge that you were wrong and to take whatever punishment is due you. But on the other hand, your family, your community, you yourself are dependent upon whether you actually have the ability to defend yourself in those crucial situations that could cause great harm or even your death or the death or serious injury to your loved ones or people in your community. So the fundamental purpose of the Constitution is to secure the blessings of liberty, of course, to those two groups. Ourselves, which is all the people of the United States, they are the born people of the United States, and our posterity, which are the unborn descendants of the people of the United States. And yes, you've heard me say it before, and I'm not going to lose this opportunity here. We are currently executing, killing, destroying, eliminating, whatever word you want to use, many of the people who are named, or the individuals who are named in the Constitution to be treated exactly as ourselves. This is the fundamental principle of the Constitution of the United States. And so, why is all this important? It's important because all of us want that protection. But it justifiably should only be for us if we are willing to have that respect, that responsibility towards others. And when their rights are being violated, we need to stand up together, which shouldn't be that difficult, should it? And we should object to people being treated in a way that we would never want to be treated. And because it's such a very, very important issue, I remind people that that's exactly what's happening when we destroy young individuals who are named in the Constitution to be treated as ourselves, and we allow them to be destroyed in the womb. The Constitution names those individuals to be treated exactly as ourselves. But I'm not going to spend any more time on that. I want you to think about that because it's a very important, a very basic, a very fundamental principle of the Constitution of the United States. But because this is about the statement of purpose of the Constitution, I want to just go into other aspects for a moment or two so you understand it better. Any time that we discuss the Constitution, we should look at that statement of purpose. And those are my words. It doesn't say the statement of purpose of the Constitution when you look at the Constitution. But we need to look at that, and then as we discuss other laws and other principles, what's going on in American society, we should be asking ourselves, does it pass what I referred to as the first and final constitutional test? And that question about does it adhere to the Constitution should be asked all along the legislative process. We should ask it when it goes from one house to the other, when it's changed by amendment or whatever process, and then certainly prior to actually having it signed into law. Because these are the fundamental purposes, and even my staunchest opponents, when we discuss these things, they really want these fundamental principles to act on their behalf and to serve them. The problem is that, as I mentioned, oftentimes it becomes a situation where they don't care if it works in our favor. In fact, they prefer that it don't or doesn't, and oftentimes they work in order to make sure that it will not work in the favor of their opponents. This is not the way to get things done. It's not honorable behavior. We cannot be honorable people if we allow that to happen. We have something in this country in legal principles that is referred to as equal justice under the law. We have a system, and we'll talk about it in another program, where our law is not very just. It is open to so much manipulation that the people in charge of, especially the courts and the legislative branches, can manipulate things so their people don't face justice and other people who are their opponents are held accountable. It's up to us. We're the people who need to do this. It's up to you. I hope you have respect for others and you understand the fundamental principles of the statement of purpose of the Constitution of the United States. God bless you all. I hope you all have a great day as usual. You can make it a great day for yourself and many others. We'll see you in our next program.